Good evening and welcome to day 103. I wasn't able to record yesterday, but I did read. But I will take us through from then. First Samuel, chapter 15 to 17. Saul is um, Saul is given explicit instructions to go and destroy the Amalekites. Now this is one of those ones where there is an explicit instruction to go and destroy men, women, children, babies, everything. I think it's always hard. It's always hard, sort of, trying to reconcile this. But it's only hard from our point of view. From the point of view of a human being looking at other human beings being destroyed. Looking at, in the past, looking at other human beings destroyed, or at least the instruction going out to do so. On the one hand, if we see the Amalekites again, we know maybe there was some hyperbole here. And that's often the case. There's hyperbole in some of these writings. It's going to completely destroy these people. And then 2 chapters down, you see them again. So, okay, maybe you didn't destroy them completely. At the very least, there's often and always death. Um, on the other hand, if God instructs for the destruction of a people, is it murder? I think in the same way as if I burn a book I have written, no one can call me a murderer because it's my creation. And if removing it from existence is also my prerogative. Now, you have to recognize who God is and how small we are in the grand scheme of things to accept that. And that's relatively easy for me to do because God created it. God created them. And in as much as this isn't prescriptive for all nations, this isn't prescriptive for all peoples, this isn't anyone who doesn't believe, go and kill them, as maybe the crusade might have suggested. This isn't, hey, there's a Jew over there behind that tree, go and then kill them. If you know, you know. This is a people that had opposed God's special people, God avenging them. Um, make of that what you will. Um, but yes, he's told specifically to go and do that. He does that, but keeps the king and also the spoils of that war, keeps them. This was in complete contradiction to what God had said he should do. And we are seeing a consistent behavior on Saul's part where there's a certain lack of seriousness about him as pertains to what God has said to do. What God has said is permitted, what God has instructed him to do. It's as though he doesn't really take it seriously. With the sacrificing of the animals in the previous chapters to this, when Samuel does come, he's all cheerful and it's like, yeah, I've done what God said. And Samuel's like, but there are sheep, there are goats. And Saul's like, yeah, we destroyed everything else. And Samuel informs him that God has God has rejected him. He is no longer God's chosen to be king. And this is a reaffirmation of actually something that Samuel said earlier, but he's gone on ahead and proven that point. Um, and we get this we get this line, obedience is better than sacrifice, that was said to us as kids in Ghana so much with no context. It was always obedience is better than sacrifice, and it made no sense to us because what are we sacrificing? We're just being disobedient. But there was never a reference to this. Now Saul pleads for forgiveness, and begs Samuel to go back with him. When Samuel rejects, um, he he actually, Samuel rejects and tries to go, and Saul holds him so much that he tears off the hem of his robe, which I think is some foreshadowing. We'll see later on for why. But Saul then pleads again and says, "At least honor me before the elders of my people." So, in as much as he knows he's sinned, he's also wanting to save face. And that's when Samuel actually goes back with him. But it was interesting to see that. And Samuel mourns this because Samuel's already mourned Israel rejecting God as king. Now, the dude that was king is proving himself to be somewhat of a bad guy, a bad king. And Samuel's still mourning him. Eventually, the Lord tells Samuel to go and anoint the next king, who's going to be David. And while Samuel goes, he takes a look at the oldest and thinks, yeah, surely this is the Lord's anointed because he's probably handsome and tall. But God now points out, look, I've given you. He said, don't judge by his appearance or height. Um, he had given them the tallest and most handsome respite. Um, Life is challenging, and we all know the story of David and Goliath. And eventually, David kills him, and we get this interesting thing here where we know David has gone to be playing the instrument for Saul, and has been so good that he's become Saul's armor bearer. But also, Saul has sent word to David's father to say, um, let David stay in the palace with me, for I'm really pleased with him. And the Bible says he loved Saul. But then after killing Goliath, we have this interesting thing where Saul's like, whose son is this? As though he doesn't recognize David. And this caught me out, right? Because it feels like there's not a contradiction here, but it feels wrong. If Saul loves loves David so much so as to make him his armor bearer, so much as to send word to his father to say, let him stay with me, why is he now like as though he doesn't recognize who David is? Like, whose dad is this? And like, go and find him. Um, and I was looking into what was going on there, and it's unsurprisingly not a new phenomenon. There are tons of scholars that have debated this point, and the tension that's here. The significance of it, fairly um, inconsequential, because the point of chapter 17 isn't to establish the relationship between David and Saul. It's to contrast David's faith with Israel's lack thereof. And it, there are some theories as to why there is this apparent disparity. Uh, there's thoughts that Samuel's actually a collection of manuscripts, and that these two stories, David going to be his musician and David going to kill Goliath, were sort of brought together in the compilation and not necessarily written as one. Um, there's let me see what other um, I just searched for this. Either way, the conclusion was that there's an acceptance of this disparity, this tension, um, but it doesn't do anything to render any of those chapters untrue. Oh, there's a point that the Greek Septuagint also omits a lot of 17, um, which is significant because the Septuagint was the scholars at the time before Christ best estimation of the translation of the Hebrew scrolls into Greek, a more specific language, and they made certain omissions because they felt it didn't help. And so it's interesting that there's that. Anyway, today's reading was First Samuel 18 to 20, and then we had two psalms. And this sprinkling of the psalms amongst the Old Testament is really one of the things that keeps me coming back to the chronological, because you really get to see a sense of context as to when some of these psalms were written and the things that were going on around them. So Saul becomes jealous of David. Saul, he recognizes that at this point he doesn't actually even know that David is the next king. But what he's starting to recognize is that the people are drawing to David more so than Saul. And this song is sort of it's sort of the summary of it. Saul has killed his thousands, David is 10,000s. Um, and that making Saul very angry, and he's already starting to show himself somewhat insecure. I'm sure, no doubt, understanding that he has, Samuel has literally told him that the nation has been tore from him in similar fashion to how he tore the hem of Samuel's robe. But he's starting to show this jealousy towards David. Um, he randomly, well, not randomly, but he gives the opportunity for someone to marry his wife, his daughter, and yeah. So wait. So before that, he actually throws a spear at David, trying to kill him. Fails. He puts David, sends David to go and fight, hoping he'd be killed. Fails. Offers his daughter to um, David to marry, and then asks for 100 Philistine foreskins as bride price. Go and kill 100 Philistines, which is crazy. This David, who has already recognized himself as a poor man from a humble family, he takes this offer like real quick and kills 200. And the idea to me, of them killing these dudes and then circumcising them for that's 200 circumcisions for his wife is crazy. But that's what happens, and Saul's just, yeah, he's just terrified of David. He tries multiple times to kill him. His wife, Saul's daughter, ends up helping him. Saul and Jonathan have a really strong friendship. Jonathan helps him, um, and Jonathan even, puts his own life in danger when, he thwarts one of Saul's plans to kill him. And yeah, we get this really good, the relationship between David and Jonathan, I think, stood out to me now because coming into this year, one of the songs that really stood with me was a song by a band called Fra, which I think is short for fraternity. It's a Ghanaian band, and they've got a song called "I Go Day for You," and it's literally just a song about brotherhood, like a song about your bro, like your friend, your brother from another mother, that's been with you through thick and thin, that's contributed to wifey being your wifey. And I really, really, it really struck me, and I still listen and sing along to it every now and then because it makes me appreciate how little we celebrate some of those relationships. But anyway, to Psalm 11. And Psalm 11 is written around this time where David is having to trust God for protection, trust protection against, this king who he is serving. And David is seeing protection come from the king's own kids and God, making a way for him. And it's beautiful. And Psalm 59, you know, um, this is when Saul had sent the soldiers to go and grab him in this house, and his wife has helped him to escape. Literally putting like a statue in the bed so that it appears to be David. Um, and David is clearly like this warrior poet who's writing about the things that is going on. This being the same dude that killed Goliath. This being the same dude that killed 200 Philistines and then circumcised them for his wife. So he isn't like just, you know, woe is me type emo poet. Nah, he's a warrior. He is a warrior. But he's also obviously quite reflective. I think that's quite cool to see. So that's today's reading. I am officially back on track. And tomorrow will be Psalm 21 to 24. Psalm 21 to 24 and Psalm 91. And God willing,